Hey, I'm Justin, lead developer of the Ethereum Foliage plugin. This guide will be a fast overview of the plugin for those who are curious or for advanced Unreal devs who are a bit impatient and just want to crack right into it. So this video won't cover every single facet of the plugin, but it will give you enough to get started. To get the plugin working, there are a couple of project settings you'll need to change. First, add the foliage map asset to your asset manager. We introduced a new asset type that isn't included in packaging by default, so adding it ensures that it actually gets packaged. Otherwise, the plugin doesn't work in your build game. To see a screenshot of these settings, check the link in the description of this video. The next setting you'll have to change is adding a new collision channel called Blocked Bullet, with the default response set to block. Adding this allows weapon projectiles and line traces to detect your foliage. Next, to make your character interact with the foliage, you'll need to add the ED Foliage Influencer component to your blueprint. When this component overlaps with a foliage instance, it will instantly convert it to its designated foliage blueprint. To see where the overlap occurs, enable the debug checkbox, then adjust its position and scale it around the character. It's super optimized, so use a few of them and keep it tight around your mesh rather than having a single big one. Once you're finished, turn off the debug checkbox so it's hidden in the game. Next, let's talk a bit about player collisions. Unreal's chaos physics really sucks at simulating multiple skeletal meshes interacting with one another. The solution we came up with was to enable a one-way collision, allowing the character to influence the foliage but not the other way around. If you check out one of our foliage blueprint examples, you'll notice the foliage skeletal mesh ignores pawns but blocks everything else. Your character's collision capsule uses the pawn object type, so that means it'll pass right through the foliage mesh. It also happens to be at the top of the component hierarchy, meaning that anything attached to it will be forced to move with it. So that means if you set your character mesh to any of the object types that are blocked by the foliage skeletal mesh, the character mesh will affect the foliage. But since it's attached to the capsule component that is not affected by foliage, the character's mesh movement will remain unaffected, producing a one-way collision. If that's too confusing for you, just check out the BP example player blueprint and try to copy its settings. Okay, so the character's done. Let's create some custom foliage. To make foliage physics, you'll need a static mesh, a skeletal mesh, and a physics asset. If you are unsure about how to create these, I've included some video tutorials in the description. Every foliage blueprint needs to be a child of BP foliage parent, so let's right-click it and create a new child blueprint. Then move it to the folder with your foliage meshes and open it up. First, we'll assign the skeletal mesh to the foliage. Then, if you need distance field shadows to be rendered, you can assign the static mesh. By default, it's set up to have no collision and be fully invisible except for rendering distance fields. We set it up this way to solve quite a few problems caused by skeletal meshes not rendering distance fields. Next, select the anti-knockover capsule. Remember earlier when we talked about one-way collisions with the player? Well, this simulates two-way collision. It's set up to block the player's capsule component if the foliage is beyond a certain size, which really helps with immersion. So place it in the center trunk of your plant and scale it according to how you want it to affect the player's movement. Then select the root component, and in the details panel, you can change the size before anti-knockover activation. The blueprint will check the object bound scale of the foliage and only activate the capsule if the size exceeds the value put here. Next, select the plant touch capsule and scale it over the plant. This is what triggers the sound effect. And finally, select the sound effect component and choose a sound effect to play. You can find a whole bunch of them in the plugins folder if you're interested. If you want to automatically change the sound effect's volume and pitch based on scale, you can do that in the event graph on Begin Play by using a function called Scale Foliage Sound Effect. So that pretty much covers the basics on how to create a foliage blueprint with simulated physics. If you want to dive deeper into some more complex interactions, we'll be covering that in a later tutorial. But for the time being, you can check out the annotated foliages in our content examples level. And if you want to check out all the functions we have available, you can open up BP Learn Foliage Blueprints. So you've set up the character, created a foliage blueprint, and now we have to tell the system how to connect it all. We designed a new asset type called the foliage map to do just that. To make a foliage map, just right-click the content browser and go to Miscellaneous Foliage Map. Once opened, you can add a new row and input your static mesh and its associated blueprint. If you have a whole bunch of meshes and foliage blueprints in your project already and don't want to manually do this, you can click on one of the autofill options and it'll find them for you. Foliage maps have been designed very efficiently, meaning you can use as many as you want in your level, and even if their data overlaps, it won't cause issues. The final step to setting up the system is to paint your foliage in your level. Since our system doesn't use collision checks, it doesn't really matter what settings you use here. As long as the foliage is stored in the foliage map, along with its associated blueprint, it should convert and become interactive. To get the Pivot Painter Wind working with your foliage, you'll first need to add BP Wind Controller to your level. Next, you'll need to make sure your plant material includes the correct wind function. Open your foliage material and add the function called MF Ethereum PP Grass Wind. For more complex wind functions like object occlusion, you can refer to some of our content examples like our grass material. To enable Pivot Painter grass trails, open up your character blueprint, select the mesh, and enable Render Custom Depth Pass. Any mesh with this turned on will generate grass trails. Then add BP Grass Trail Capture to your level and place it roughly 1000 units below the landscape. This actor follows the player and reads the custom depth data. Next, make your landscape material two-sided or the trails won't appear. Then select any meshes you don't want affecting the trails and enable Hidden in Scene Capture in their Details panel so they don't block the effect. Finally, open our grass material example in the Foliage Examples folder, copy the nodes connected to the WPO, and paste them in your own grass material. Then, in its material instance, change the Pivot Painter texture to the one associated with your mesh to ensure that the trails bend correctly. Thanks for following this quick intro guide to our plugin. Me and my team have been building this plugin for over 2 years now, always shaping it around feedback we get from our customers. So feel free to tell us what you think. And if you're already a customer and you've got a moment, a quick review goes a long way. It helps more devs discover the plugin and helps us keep pushing out updates. Anyway, I'll see you in the next tutorial, and I hope this adds a bit more life to your projects.